365 days, but I treat every day like it's my last. I'm only concerned with building on the future, cause I can't change my past. Positive vibes for positive lives. She just giving you that truth and shifting your mind. It's more mental than you realize. It's up to you to take control, cause this world is cold and negativity gon' take its toll. Now we've been told any day could be your last. I'm embracing every moment and I cherish every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity, and make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist. Let's go.
Hi, beautiful people. So if you're watching this on a replay, thank you for watching me. So I took June off, but we are back. Welcome back. It's the song's playing in my head. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Clearly, I can't sing. This is why I'm a therapist and I do the podcast. So thank you for being here. If you've never been in here before, I am on episode 313, which means I started at episode 1, and I'm really excited to be here. I've been podcasting since 2018, and it's been a really amazing journey because I get to talk to some amazing people that are doing things to empower the lives of others by sharing their story. And, you know, the goal behind what I do is to just help people learn and have hope for their life, for their future, rewrite their story. And so who's going to help me do this today? I'm going to add him onto the stream, and I'm going to have him introduce himself to you beautiful people. Hello, hello. How are you?
Hey, Celeste. Nice to be here with you.
Can you introduce yourself to my audience?
Sure. My name is David Bedrick. I'm a founder of something called the Santa Fe Institute for Shame-Based Studies. I've been practicing therapy for 20 plus years. I was an attorney for 10 years, and I've written a few books. And in addition to that, I'm a normal human being who gets crazy and messed up and wrestles with his life and finds ways of getting through every so often, and finds community in the struggles that I have with others. Mm-hmm.
No, therapists don't have struggles. We have it all figured out, don't we?
Oh yeah, I have it all figured out. Except that the next day, the thing that I figured out is not exactly it.
That's the belief in the streets right now.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here. So like I was telling the audience, you know, I like to share people's stories. So I want to kind of start off with your history, but then, you know, the idea of shame, body image, all of this stuff is so fascinating to me. I think that I'm grateful that I've been able to understand how much society plays a role in our everyday life. So I make sure to be mindful on the messages that I'm hearing. But I understand a lot of people aren't aware of that. So I do want to get into that for people to help them kind of see what's taking place. So tell people where you were born, and did you have any siblings?
Yes, I was born in New York, in Queens. I had one older brother and living father and mother. As part of my personal story, I had a father who was brutal or violent. He used fists and belts to express his rage. Not just to punish, not that that would be okay, but that's how he was a grown man in a rage. So that was pretty scary as a youngster for me. And I had a mother who was pretty disempowered. And what that means for my story, meaning she couldn't say to my father, hey, that's it, stop, no way. And she couldn't say to me, I saw that, I know what's happening. I'm able to open my eyes and see how difficult it is, meaning she couldn't bear witness to that violence. That's important to my own thinking later on in my life. Mm-hmm.
When I think about people, you know, for people that may share parts of this story and grow up in a home where, you know, when I think about the way we're shown love and the way that we're born, the goal is for the parent to care for the child. So you had one not caring and one unable to, based off of all the things she was going through. What does that do to someone psychologically when they're raised in that kind of environment where both caregivers are not available to care for their emotional needs, physical needs, all of those things?
Yeah, the two different styles of parenting have a different impact. The violence that my father, some people can't see it, I have like a fist. The violence, then if I internalize that, then I'll start beating on myself with it. We could call that perfectionism, or David, you're saying it wrong with Celeste today. And I could be exceptionally hard on myself. So you could say that father, although he's long past, still lives inside. But my mother's role is more insidious. It says, nothing's happening, David, nothing's wrong. Somebody said something really hurtful to you. It's not that big a deal. It didn't really happen. Hey, Celeste, did you hear that person make that comment? You think that was really rough? I don't believe myself. Because my mother doesn't believe, quote unquote, me and believe in me. That happens to a lot of people who are abused, as you know. And then when that gets internalized, a person stops believing their own truth, their own experience. They don't even know if they're getting hurt or not. I've had women come to me and say, it's not that bad. I only got he only grabbed me once. I said, can I see where he grabbed you? It's no big deal. I said, can I see? And then a woman will roll up a sleeve and show me 5 fingerprints on her arm. And I'll say, that looks significant to me. I get queasy looking at it, appropriately so, having a visceral reaction. And that person might not even take their hurts seriously. How does that happen? If you don't get your hurts seriously, you just think, oh, I should toughen up. Well, I'm very sensitive. That's why I get bruised. You don't think something's wrong here.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things that I'm big on is fault and responsibility. Like, it's not someone's fault that they was dealt that hand in life. And one of the things where I help my clients reconcile with is like their story. So for someone that may have had this kind of story with them, it's like, how, as a mom, would you not know? Can you talk a little bit about her psychology behind it? Because a lot of denial going on. I don't think she was born and said, hey, I want to ignore my son's emotional needs and not care for him, just to help the audience think about that piece.
There's a number of different things to say that are important to her history. Let me start with the more general piece that would be applicable to many people and many women. I'm 65. My mother grew up in a world that was highly enculturated to be servient, subservient. Some women still have that for sure, because the culture still has that. This is your role, right? So she had that, which meant that the power that lived in her didn't get expressed by saying, I can do something, or I can stand up for myself, or I can defend myself in relationship. So that disempowerment that she had, I have to take it. I have to deal with things. When things are rough, I'll try to make believe they're not happening because I don't have a power inside of me to stand up and do something about that. So when that power is stripped or stolen or not cultivated in a certain way, that makes it more likely that she's going to say, nothing is really happening wrong, because she doesn't have the capacity to do something with that difficulty.
Right. Yeah. So she kind of parented from just the capacity she had. She did not have that capacity to do it for herself, nor her child. So, and one of the other things that you stated was, even though your dad has passed, he still lives within you. Can you explain what you mean by that for people? Sometimes when things have happened 20, 30 years ago, and, I'm helping people make the connections to what's happening in their life now, they're always shocked at how is it that this thing that is not here, or this issue is still affecting me today.
Yes. When I was like 5, 6 years old, first grade, my father would look over my homework and be very harsh about it. So if I missed a spelling word, right, it wasn't just like, let me help teach you, or why did you miss that, or don't worry about it, or it's just one word. There's many alternatives to holding that. He got rough, right? That means I would get wounded from his energy, from his words, and be frightened. So these days, then, I have to watch out. So if I end my time talking to you, Celeste, I have to watch out that I don't say, David, maybe you could have said this, maybe you could have said that. You didn't have to speak so fast. Why were you nervous? These are not only questions, they're challenges, confrontations, but they could happen beneath the level of my awareness, so that I could just sit and then I can say to someone, oh, I don't know how I did so well today. But what that really means is not that I didn't do well today. It means that something's been knocking me down for the last 30 minutes until I felt like I was a child to some extent. I'm not a very good person. Maybe I should just go hide my voice and not say anything anymore.
Mm. And thank you for sharing that. You know, that inner child lives within us, and for some people, it's been very wounded. So it's important. What David's doing is he's kind of being mindful and bringing himself to the now, because the brain does not have concept of time. So the feeling or that comes up is a familiar feeling for his mind and body, and it will take him back to being 6 years old, even though he's not 6 years old anymore, but it feels that way. And so that's a really perfect example of like the inner child and how it can play a role in your everyday life.
Thank you for saying that's beautifully put, actually. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think that when people recognize that and learn that, it's not that we won't ever get triggered again, but it's more so that we'll start to have more power over our situations and don't feel like we're losing control.
It's a really important thing. And then when a person becomes more aware of that, instead of saying, oh, I don't know, I'm just down today, they say, I'm beating the crap out of myself today. And that's a very different thing, because if I'm feeling down and you're my best friend, you say, oh, David, can I give you a hug? Or let's take a walk, or I'm here for you. But if I say to you, hey, Celeste, I'm beating the crap out of myself, you don't say, oh, let me give you a hug. You say, oh my gosh, let's stop that bullying that's happening.
Yes. The language is important, and most people don't have the language because you can't see it. It's not tangible, right? And especially growing up in America, we don't talk a lot about wellness and internal growth. We talk a lot about success financially and relationshiply. So that's the unfortunate thing that we chase while we suffer inside.
Internal. I love that you say that. The internal wellness, because it's not visible. I can say, hi, I'm fine today. And you may not know that I have fibromyalgia. I don't, and my body is in agony, that I just had a conflict with somebody and I'm beating myself up about it, or all kinds of things, or I hate my body and hope that you're not looking at me. You may not know all of that because it's relatively invisible to a mainstream culture. Doesn't even know how to look at that.
We don't know how. We get very uncomfortable if we were to say the truth. And so for David, you know, someone growing up in a household like that can turn out in different ways. But for you, you became extremely empathetic with people. Talk to people, because, you know, I think, you know, some people, and unfortunately, will become abusive. You were the other extreme. And I'm sure that had to have, you must have struggled with boundaries over the years with how much you've talked, because I watched David's videos. He talks a lot about the empathy he has for seeing people and feeling people's pain. So talk to people about what that did to you being in that environment.
It's just such an important question. I want to say something in general. Sometimes people say, when they hear about violence, some people say the statement, hurt people, meaning, oh, I know why they did that. They must have been hurt. And I always say, some hurt people, because some hurt people become the most compassionate and loving people that you would ever meet. So, and that takes away from that causal idea. Well, that must be because some people are really hurt and don't. Some people hurt people, and it's not because they're hurt. There's other kinds of reasons. So it's important to look, David, you're rough with your partner, when you treated roughly, but it may not be the only story that's going on. I lost your specificity of your question. Sorry that issue became.
No, I like that. I never thought about that. That is something people say, and I think that the way you're dealing with it, or the way that you it shows up in your life it's not talked about a lot. That lack, because I didn't hear you say this, but all I was thinking was like, oh my gosh, you must have had no boundaries over the years with people because of how empathetic you were. So I really want to know, like, what did that empathy do for you over the years that you had for people, and probably none for yourself?
That's beautifully put. Wow, I love that question. That's a deep question. I haven't thought.
I'm a deep person, David. You didn't know where you was coming?
I'm getting that. I mean, when I was very young, because my brother was older and he got the rougher end of my father's brutality, I was frightened a lot and got some, but my brother got it worse. So when my brother ended up turning the violence on me when I was young, I thought, maybe I can understand him. Maybe I can care for him. And my brother had a rather sadistic, I have to say it that way, because he hurt creatures. It wasn't just like he was in an anger space. It's a little more difficult to explain because some people don't understand that some individuals get a certain satisfaction out of hurting another. You think that's impossible, but some people do. But with him especially, growing up, I was very empathetic with him and gave myself over to the violence that he would perpetrate, hoping that I could love him enough. That's how I felt. And the love is genuine. It shouldn't be put down in people. But I thought that would work. It didn't. That didn't stop anything. I didn't know that. So it took a while for me to make certain distinctions that some people confront me even today because they really have a good challenge for me that I can learn from. Some people confront me because they have some power that they're learning to use. And I think, amen, push against me and feel your strength. And some people confront me because they want to take somebody down. Not because I ought to be taken down, like because I'm standing too high and somebody should bring me to my own level. Not because somebody has some power and wants to learn, but because somebody says, I want to take some people down. And I'm still needing to open my eyes to say, that's that kind. That person's we're not going to dialogue and get somewhere. A person wants to injure somebody. Mm-hmm.
And you struggled with that discernment, I'm assuming, of trying to understand, life and dealing and relating to people.
Yes, even in social media these days, because I have a fair social media presence and write a lot and people enter dialogues with me, I have to realize some people will attack what I have to say because they really have a good point and I really missed something. I was blind about something and they're going to come on a little stronger than necessary, but I get it, right? But some people, they would argue and want to fight with me all day long. There is not a dialogue that we're having where even if I said, I'm really sorry, I'm learning something, that would not be meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm genuine, not just trying to put them off. And that kind of person, I have to remember, that person wants to hit somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they need to hit somebody, but I don't think I'm the one because I didn't injure them with my thought system. Yeah.
Right. And I want to just clarify for people when he was talking about his brother and how you were saying like people may not understand this idea of getting relief or release or feeling pleasure from hurting. With your brother, that was the only environment that he knew how. So he was very conditioned to it. And so, that's why for people that may be listening and curious about that piece, people, we are creatures of habit. And but that doesn't mean that we have to continue to stay in that cycle that we're in, but we are creatures of habit. And it's important, when it's not healthy to work on breaking it up a little bit.
It's a huge thing. Sometimes I'll work with somebody who's in a violent relationship. They're being violated. Somebody's abusing them. And I can tell that everybody in their life, including me, could say, get away from that person. And that person might not. Some people do. Some people get a good friend or a good counselor or a good whatever, someone that they believe in, that loves them enough, who says, dear Celeste, this is not good for you. Let me help you out. And some people say, thank you. But some people, you can tell, unbudgeable. And then I think, so what does it mean to help? If I can't pull them out, right, so to speak, then what do I do? And then I think that person's learning something. I have to help them learn that as fast as possible. Mm-hmm. And one thing might be what that person is capable, what the person is hurting them is capable of doing if they are capable of changing. So that person might say, I think they could change. That hasn't happened in 2 weeks, 2 months, 1 day, 6 hours, that particular violence. And then I have to say things like this. Let's be totally sober. I'm not talking about alcohol. I'm talking about opening your eyes. I'd say, imagine if I'm working with that person individually, I say, imagine that person in front of you. Look at them clearly. Well, no, that's drunk. But no, that's drunk. Sober, look at them, see them. Last time you saw them, the last time they hurt you, when you talk to them about it. Does that look like a person who's going to make a change? You have to, if that person says, I think so, I say, let's make a best shot at it again. Even if I don't think so, because I don't have the power to change that person's life faster. But that's sobriety in a sense. So that you're drunk is a funny word. I'm only using that because sometimes there's addictions in those relationships. But the sobriety I'm talking about is look at that person and see. I have to do that with my own partner. She's not abusive, but I have to see there are certain things about her that are her. I may not only like all of those qualities, but at some point I have to say, I've been in a relationship with Lisa for 18 years. Who is she though? She has a different nature than me and might not become something else. I have to look at that and know that, and about myself as well.
Yeah, that's really good. And for people listening who may have family or friends in these type of relationships with, abusive relationships, just understand, the challenge that goes into the psychology that goes into this. Nobody grows up and it's like, I want to start getting beat for a living or for, over time. Unfortunately, it happens based off of just their environment and getting kind of conditioned to it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, sometimes a person has that experience, a violent experience growing up, like I did, like many people do, and there's no witness, like my mother, right? Somebody who's like, that didn't happen, it's no big deal. What are you talking about? He didn't mean it. Tell him you're sorry because he hurt you. If you get that kind of patterning, then you become blind and insensitive to your own hurt. And then it's rather easy to be with someone who mistreats you, because inside yourself you have something that says, that's not a big deal. Why are you being so sensitive? I'm sure he didn't mean it. And if you're having that kind of denial, dismissal inside of yourself, then it's easier to put up with a difficult relationship because you're not taking it seriously either.
right. It's
Yeah.
so good. So good. Because for the naked eye, it's hard to understand. But I think the way you just framed it is like really helpful.
Yeah.
So now you grow up, you decide to become an attorney.
How did that happen? Actually, it happened because I'm very interested in social justice, racism, and other anti-Semitism and other things that go on in the world. And when
Can I just pause you for a second? Because even though you were interested in it, is because of hearing your dad and speak. And even though it's not like your dad or was passionate about racism.
No, my dad was racist.
It was very racist, but
Mhm.
you took the opposite effect, right? You became even more passionate despite the environment that you were in.
Yeah, as part of it, because in my own conflicts with my father, for some reason, as a youngster, I don't know why, I fought with him a lot more early on about race than I did about our own family. I don't know why. It wasn't like I thought that through, but that was a one place where I would have fights with him. I'd say, how can you treat that person? That's the person shining your shoes. You don't talk to them about that just because they're Hispanic. I don't know. Again, I wasn't thinking through, this is my social justice position. It just poured out of me somehow that I could also relate that he was probably treating those people like treats me, only I was more intimate
Right.
in that way with that violence. But it was near and dear to my heart. And then the people who educated me as an older teen and a young adult tended to not be other white men. It was, I mean, connecting to you sitting here, it was African American women and men, writers and teachers. And somehow I thought, they understand me. Now, I was young, I couldn't talk about it the way I could talk about it now. I read James Baldwin's letter to his nephew. If people ever want to read it, you could Google it. It's like 6 pages. He writes to this 15-year-old, I'm thinking, Black male youth in Harlem, 1950s, and he's telling him about what his life is going to be about, and the mediocrity the society would try to get him accustomed to, as opposed to his own beauty and greatness, and what it meant to love. And he tells this youth, people don't see you. The white culture is blind to you. And then he says something amazing. And he says, but you have to love those people. What do you mean? He says to this 15-year-old youth in Harlem, you're their older brother. Now, he's not saying love them, meaning make it okay. He's saying you're actually know more about love and what people are made of and capable of than these people do. You've got to educate those people. And I read that letter, and I read it like every day over and over. I was like, I need James Baldwin in my life. Now, he wasn't alive for me to make contact, but yeah.
And what David said, he read that letter over and over. It was something that he needed. And for, I try to do teaching moments for people, when you gravitate to something that helps you, reading it over and over, listening to it over and over again can do something to your psychology. For me, when I was struggling, I would type in motivational videos on YouTube and I would listen in the mornings. I would put a reminder in my phone to do that because my body is not going to remind me to work on living life because I was always in survival mode. So, really, even though you brush past that letter, reading it over and over again, for me, that stuck out. It's like, that's part of your medicine, right? Like, that helped you kind of work. It was one piece of different things that you did in conjunction and integrated into your life. But that's powerful when we can work on reframing and shifting our thought process. It's something powerful that happens with us in our plans and the way we see ourselves.
Yeah, I love that you call that medicine. I sometimes use that word. That's what I think it was. That letter for me. I read it. I have a picture of James Baldwin sitting by my desk for like 30 years. I cut out a cover of one of his books because I needed to look at him in his eyes because he reminded me of something in myself. He wrote that letter for his nephew, but he wrote that letter for me, quote unquote. He didn't write it to me, but it's also me. He's saying, David, people don't see you. David, you have love in you. How are you going to express that? Can you elder people? Do you understand your family? He's talking to me also from a deep understanding of an experience and educating me. Yeah, educated me psychologically as much as any of the counselors I ever had or other trainings, because he saw America psychologically so clearly that intelligently, not lovingly, but not lovingly, it's not a big deal. Let's make it go away. Love it fiercely and lovingly together. Those are qualities that I wanted to embody also. Yeah.
That's good. And for David, it was James Baldwin. For me, Les Brown stuck out, and the Eric Erickson, The Power of Now. Some people may read The Power of Now and it may not hit them the way it hit me. So my point is that it's going to look different for everyone.
Yes.
Definitely think about what that looks like for you. And when you find it, don't let it go. Gravitate towards that.
Yes.
That's important. You are, the author of your story. And it's I tell people it's always you versus you. It's not what's happened in the past. It's really the way we're framing it that really keeps us stuck.
That's beautiful. One of the women that I talk about in my book, backtrack. The people that I end up interviewing for this Recharge project, for the group, for the book, they also became my teachers because I approached these interviews not like I'm your healer, I will make you better, but I approached them saying, I want to learn. And that was genuine. And then people taught me things that I'm like, oh my gosh, how would I ever know if I didn't think that person had a teaching, not just a problem that they could offer me that I could learn, in this case, as a more or less thin-ish white male talking to women and women of color about their body image. How do I approach that? I'm not the author of that experience. I don't know that experience in my own body. I have other experiences in my body. I know what it's like to hate myself in ways, etc., critique my body. But these women had their own unique experience from a patriarchal gaze, a white patriarchal cultural gaze that said, this is what beauty is, this is what it isn't, this is whether you're attractive, this is whether you're worthy, this is whether you're beautiful, this is whether you're powerful, this is what you should do, you should listen to me. That training, they educated me about that. It was phenomenal for me to learn those things.
No, that's good. And so what David is, so that's his second book. You did so many things. I feel like attorney, went back to school. After that, you got interested in psychology.
Yes.
Which it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Went back to school, interested in psychology. Then you wrote this book, Talking Back to Dr. Phil.
Yes.
And I think that one of the things that I always say I'm a different type of therapist. And when I listen to the way you talk about psychology and just being radical in a sense, talk to people a little bit about your mindset around your first book and just your idea of, talking back to Dr. Phil. What does that mean?
Yes. I was practicing law, and in the middle of the day when I took breaks, I had one of those elliptical trainers. You move the hands back and forth in your feet, and you sweat and you get exercise. And I would put the TV on while I was doing that to keep myself busy and things like that. I didn't only love doing that exercise. And I put on and I see Dr. Phil, and I would think, why are you saying that to that person? Oh my gosh, that's dumb. You're supposed to be a psychologist. That means you're interested in what's going on. You're not interested in telling people what's wrong with them. You're interested in understanding them and helping them understand themselves, as opposed to, well, why are you doing that, Celeste? Well, yeah, like, if you want to lose weight, why are you eating chocolate? Well, Dr. Phil, you're supposed to be helping the person figure out that question. So I would yell back and yell at him. And then I thought, you know what? I should tape my yelling, So I would tape those, and then I transcribed those. And then I think I took 19 of those sessions, and I thought, I think I'm going to take those transcriptions and edit and put some understanding around them, and talk back to Dr. Phil. But the other interesting thing from my psychology around that, Celeste, is if that problem, my experience with Dr. Phil arose today, I wouldn't have written that book. I would have written more like I'm writing now, more of the stories that people tell me and my own ideas. But I was a younger man, that's fine, who was learning about his voice up against other voices. So if somebody said, David, this is the truth of the world, and I could find things that I didn't agree with that helped me find my voice, I'd say, I don't like that idea. I think differently. So in a way, I used Dr. Phil, used in a good way. I mean, I'm trying to bring myself out. Thank you, Dr. Phil, for saying things that make me want to speak back to you. Mm-hmm. But in a way, as a younger man, I needed to push against somebody and say, I disagree. Here's what I think. And it helped me bring my voice out. So
wow, that's amazing. Yes. And one of the things you said about psychological activists is a person who's an ally to the unseen, listens, bear witness, and advocates. Why is that important? These ideas of kind of listening, bearing witness, and advocating.
So important. It comes to my idea of shame. If you think, I can frame it in terms of my mother as an entity of the culture, meaning, Celeste, that didn't happen. That person's not sexist. I don't think they meant that. Why are you talking about race? That person doesn't mean anything, right? Sorry, I don't even take any of that in. But if we live in a culture that has so much denial, dismissal, people call it also gaslighting. Maybe you got a problem. That's not a person who's toxic to your being that you should stay away from. Maybe it's your problem. Mm-hmm. So we have so much of that denial, dismissal, and blame in the culture that we need then people who do see. I saw that. Yes, I heard that. You say, did you hear that, David? I heard that. I know exactly where that person's coming from. Of course you felt insulted. Of course you're feeling hurt. Of course you're feeling angry and upset. Of course you don't want to hang out with that person. We need so much of that kind of witnessing. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about Larry Nassar. He was the gymnast doctor from University of Michigan and the Olympics who had abused I don't know how many women. And under the guise of being their physician, right? He sexually molested, abused these women. It took 160 women to come forward and a female prosecutor. It took all of that before somebody said, I think I believe I'm being sarcastic, I shouldn't. I believe you. Your story is important. Why? Because even within the families, even the mothers and fathers said, maybe he didn't mean it. I think you're making something of it. Because there's so much enculturation to take things, especially from quote unquote seeming authorities. Yeah. So we really need people who are activists in the sense of, I saw that. I see why you feel that way. Tell me more about what happened. What's it like inside of you? Where's the truth in your body? Is it in your arms? Is it in your genitals that remember in the cramping? I don't mean to trigger people, right? But tell me, let me listen to you with the orientation that you have a truth inside you and deep intelligence about your experience. You're the author, as you said, and I'm going to learn from you. That kind of witnessing is invaluable.
Yeah, it's so invaluable. And, the shame piece, I feel like we can do a whole podcast on shame.
And often,
yeah. Mm-hmm. I think we should.
Sorry, I didn't mean you should do that with me. I was just
no. As you're talking about it, I just know like shame plays a role in a lot of the reasons why people feel stuck. I want to talk about your new book, but when you think about shame for people that are listening, can you define like what that looks like for people and how it can have an effect on people?
Yes, I can do that. Sometimes I imagine it this way. I'm putting my hand behind my head. People can't see that, as if it's talking to me. And there's a voice inside of me. David, you didn't do this. David, you shouldn't have eaten that last night. David, you shouldn't have said this. You did this wrong. You're no good. You're stupid. You're not attractive. How's anybody going to love you? Boy, and that's an ongoing internal criticism, maybe from my father, maybe from the culture, right? That also has that. It could say you're this way as a man. I don't like the way you look. You're a Jewish man. You're short. It would be better if you were taller, etc. You all know those kinds of things. So I call that assault, a kind of critical assault. In this case, it's verbal or internally verbal, but it could be other ways. What happens when shame enters? And going back to that story about my mother, that voice happens, and inside of me, I don't even know that I'm being injured. I don't know I'm being hit. That woman doesn't know that the bruises on her arm are significant. Why? Her experience is being negated by that denial, dismissal, and blame inside of her. So she doesn't say, ouch, somewhat into the inner voice or to the outer voice. Someone says to her, you're wearing that, you're not going to go out of the house looking like that. And she doesn't say, ouch, or she doesn't push back, say, I don't like that. Don't talk to me like that. I don't want you in my world if you're going to treat me like that. I'm going to make a boundary. She can't do one of those two things. Ouch, and take care and compassion for her own pain, or feel the resistance. That doesn't work for me. Hey, Celeste, we're not talking like that. You're going to have to back off and treat me differently. I don't know how to do that. I'm using that as an example. Celeste is not mistreating.
No, yeah. David, I get it.
Yeah. So if that's not, and that's what shame does. It strips the person of their sovereignty, such that I don't know if I'm being treated badly, how to push back, etc. I'm negated. So I don't then go for the authority that you talk about into my own experience. What's my truth? I don't know. Let me ask somebody. I don't know how to inquire of myself, because inside is what I have is a bunch of opinions about myself. Well, I'm a stupid idiot. That's why I ate the chocolate last night. That's the only thing I know. I'm not asking the person, what was that chocolate like? What were you hungry for? What were you feeling? Did you need something? Shame doesn't ask those questions. Shame just has an opinion. Well, I can tell you why you ate the chocolate. You're a sabotaging, no good, whatever, undisciplined person. Shame launches those opinions, and the person doesn't think, that's not very helpful to me. In fact, that hurts.
Yeah, this is really good. And for people listening, if you can relate to this, it's like you're literally walking around 24/7 with your own bully, right? And that cannot feel good. Sometimes, people are so tired, not because they haven't slept enough, but, just emotionally, you can be tired just from like having that inner voice, which is not your voice, and trying to work on giving it a name, right? That came from somewhere. And in David's case, he talked about his dad, right? Like that's the voice that ends up being it, and giving it a name can help separate yourself from it. I think that is important. Taking authority is so important, and recognize when you believe the lies. Yes, that is so true. Thank you for sharing that. The authority piece, taking control of your life. And it's a very hard thing to do, right? David, taking that power back is very hard. It seems, you would think it would be easy, but when you've been living a certain way for so long, there's nothing easy about this process.
Nothing easy about that. I love what you're saying. It's brilliant. The naming of it. My father's name was Martin, and I tell my partner, Marty's around today, and we make play out of it. And play is actually useful because it makes, but it's sort of like my father was very frugal at best around spending. So when my partner used to get a package from Amazon, I'd say, what did you get today? What did that cost you? But I didn't have a question, you see, right? I really had what did you buy? How much did you spend on that? Do you think we could really afford that? Money doesn't grow on trees kind of attitude that I learned from my father, right? So I wouldn't willing to do that directly. So I would ask these questions, and she didn't like those questions for good reason, because they weren't really questions, right? And then we started, once I got more aware of that, I started making jokes. Marty wants to know how much you spend on that box. And she says, tell Marty it's none of his business. So it's still around, but it doesn't become noxious. It becomes part of it's me and you, and then the other people who are living here, right? The culture in this part of patriarchy, and my father who's still here telling, having opinions. It was like a gang of us hanging out together, right?
That's good. That play and laughter is really good for the soul. There's different ways, that we work through things, right? And that's a prime example of that.
Yeah. Taking your power back. There's a woman in the book that I interviewed. When she was young, her father would tease her about being chunky, right, in front of other people, and she would feel assaulted by him, and then ashamed because there'd be other people around, and she would be like, I'm trying to cover my body. She would wish that she wasn't being seen, right? Which is not a great thing to think of when you enter the world. I think I shouldn't be seen. Well, some people should be hermits. That's great. But if you want to be visible, your voice or your body and your person, that's going to be very difficult. But she spent a lot of years trying to make herself smaller. And yet this woman was a very powerful woman. She entered the military. She became a firewoman. She was big boned. She was strong, and she wanted to take on big things. Yet a part of her was like, how do I become smaller? How do I become smaller? And then she entered the military, and she said to me that in the military, she could do all the things the men could do, but the women got what she called tape tested. That meant they took a measuring tape, and she said, and they wrapped it around my belly and my hips and my butt, she says. And they said, you're too big. You got to do this and that and exercise more and lose 2.5 inches. And she'd say, what I can do, I can run, I can lift the things, I can do the activities. No, too big. So in a sense, the military patriarchal culture mirrors the family culture. And then at night, Celeste, she would take something called Preparation H. That's something that shrinks hemorrhoids. And she would coat her thighs and butts with this cream, which is meant to shrink things, wrap her butt and hips and thighs in saran wrap and plastic wrap and sleep like that, hoping to shrink herself. That's a literal thing, and it's a psychological thing. She walked around in life. How can I shrink? What can I go through to make myself a smaller, and I'm going to say a woman who's less powerful and takes up as much space as she did in the world? So that psychology enters physically, in the family, also in the military, all the way around. Maybe I'll make myself smaller, Celeste. Maybe I'll shrink into almost nothing. But I am a powerful human being.
Wow. And wow, that just blows my mind.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And you know how David just did with, a lot of the things that we're doing literally, we could be doing it emotionally as well. A lot of times, because I always tell people I see things a lot clearer because I'm on the outside looking in. Yes. So helping people make those connections is important for me. Yeah. But I want to say, so when David's, for my audience, David's team reached out to me about this book, right? And he has this book. It's called You Can't Judge a Book by Its Cover. It's 17 women's stories of hunger, body shame, and redemption. I was like, why is this white man writing about women? I did a little research into his story and things like that. And I was like, wow. And, I think it's important sometimes, because of the culture and with men and white men and women, it can feel like a turnoff, or you can just be like completely dismiss it. But I didn't dismiss it. I wanted to see what this was about. What was your mindset around, why did you want to create this book, around women and their bodies and kind of helping them with that healing process and being seen?
Thanks for asking that and putting that on Front Street so it doesn't sit in the background, because some women would say to me, I'm going to tone it differently than you just gave. Some people would say, why the hell are you writing a book? Right? And to that person, and that's not what you're saying. And to that person, I would say, your skepticism is important. And it may not be the book for you. And listening to a man or a white man talk about that may be dangerous for you. It might not be medicine. It might be toxic for your health. Stay away. Trust your skepticism, not because I deserve it, because you're saying, I've had a white male voice set of eyes looking at me plenty, and it's not good for me, then I'd say, you know where to go. Trust your own self about that. I really mean that. That's really important. Otherwise, the message of my book, I'm not living it. Because the message of my book is trusting your deep experience, especially your deep body knowing, embodied knowing about that. So I just wanted to say that particular piece. But towards the end of what happened for me, I'm always interested in other people's experience, not my own. And I'm interested in my own, but I've always been interested in what's it like for you? What's it like for you? And so that happened for me. And when I originally did the research, I wasn't intending that it would only be for women. I just asked people about body shame, looking at their bodies, wanting to change their bodies, and started a research project I was teaching at a university and said, anybody want to sign up for interviews about that? And 21 people signed up at first. How many men? 0. That tells me 2 things. One, maybe I should frame it different if I want to appeal to men. I didn't say how many women, but men relate to their bodies differently. But it also says, whoa, women are more awake to and more impacted by that cultural gaze. The suffering is greater. So that began my interest, and I thought, okay, well, I'll interview those people and see what happened. And I wrote some chapters. I wrote for Psychology Today quite a bit about the issue. I wrote some chapters for books on the issue, and then thought, okay, I should put this away. That was 15 years ago. But then I started teaching people, as I teach therapists and supervise, and say, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story. And people were so moved by the stories. And I thought, I should put these stories out there, not put out what David knows about this issue, but what David learned about this issue from being willing to listen to another person about that. But the last thing I want to say, that I'm shyer to say, I haven't talked about openly. I get moved by this because I think it's forbidden, but it seems just the truth to me. I feel like there is a responsibility for me as a person who has a certain amount of privilege to use that and I have some forum. I have a forum that people listen to me. I've written a couple of books. I don't have millions of people, but I have thousands of people who would probably if I put out a video, would take a look at that. And these women said, yes, I would love you to tell my story. By the way, every woman in the book consented, and in writing and in person, to me doing that, to using the transcripts. And really the book is really transcripts. It's my thoughts, but I'm really letting you in on a therapeutic session, how those insights are made. So I also feel like it's important for people to say, I want to tell other people's stories. And also, again, respect those people who said, I don't think you can tell an African-American woman's story, that you don't know that experience. And I would say, I don't, but I can tell you the story of somebody that I interviewed and tell you what she taught me. I can do that legitimately. In fact, I would love to tell that story, but if that's a good moment to do that. Yeah.
That's good.
I was working with, thank you for asking that, by the way. I'm touched by that, and it's an important dialogue. How do we dialogue? Noticing, saying, oh, I see who I am, I see who you are. What does that have to do with the dialogue? How does that impact our conversation? Should we make believe it's not true? Should we make believe I'm not a man and we're just 2 people? Maybe sometimes that's not relevant, but it is relevant to many conversations. And in this one woman, an African-American woman, she said to me at one point, I have to tell you something I don't talk about. And I feel awkward about saying it, but you're asking me about this. I want to tell you. I said, what's that? She said, sometimes I wish I were thin and white. I was like, oh my gosh. Now, I knew enough, not intense. I know enough. She knew, she was awake. She didn't think that would be a good thing. She thought, oh my gosh, look at how I'm thinking about myself, right? She wasn't thinking, isn't that a great thing? She was saying, I know I shouldn't be thinking things like this. It's not good for me. It's self-hatred. It's self-annihilating in ways. She knew that, but she said that to me secretly. And I, being a person who believes that people have intelligence in them, I said to her, when we talked about the painfulness of that, we were well aware of the internalized racism that she now has as a set of eyes. And I said to her, what would be good about being thin and white? Good, I'm putting quotes around that. I'm not thinking you should be. And she said, people would open doors for me. Not just literal doors, but doors to opportunities. Now I'm already like, my arm hairs, even just telling it years later, I was like, and I said, say more. And she said to me this amazing thing, Celeste. She said, people don't hurt things that they see as beautiful. Oh my gosh, I can hardly not quiet saying that again. Meaning, not that other people aren't seen as beautiful. If you're white, everyone sees you as beautiful. But she's saying, maybe the world would treat me differently. Wow. And wouldn't hurt me. And I said to her, and if that were true, and if the world treated you in a safer, more protected, more loving manner, what would come out of you? And I thought Celeste, she was going to say, I would speak up more, I would challenge people, I'd have a stronger voice. And she said, David, you want to know what would come out of me? My love. She said, I have so much love inside of me, but I have to protect myself all the time. Whoa! Now, I didn't know any of those things. I had never read anything like that in a book. Well, maybe there were novels that I could read that touch those kinds of stories. Psychologists tend not to talk about those kind of things. But then the beauty of my interview with this person and that sharing is she's going to wake me up, open my eyes to her experience, open my eyes to how she sees herself, open my eyes about what does it mean to feel safe in the world. In this case, as a woman of color, not that every woman of color has that experience, but it's not only her experience. And I think I want to tell that story. I want people to see what I saw, and maybe many people already know that. Amen. But some people don't know it. I didn't know it. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that makes me emotional just hearing about it, because even though she just happened to say thin and black, so many people are walking around wishing they were somebody else, or not liking parts of themselves, based off of so many different things. And to be in your own body and feel that way has to be very daunting and scary and very painful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, isn't that incredible? You don't hurt things, David, that you look at, you said you see as beautiful. And I'm like, I just started sobbing. I'm just like, that's so painful to know that a culture, it's not just a parent, that a culture is in our minds, in our looking at ourselves, our psyches, our bodies, our faces, our noses, our hairs, our heights, our bellies, and deciding something so fundamental, like you were just saying, maybe it would be better if I weren't me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, that was hard to hear. I mean, like hard, you know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to say? I want you to share with people this idea of body shame and kind of like where does it come from, and why is it that especially women, why do you think women kind of struggle with their bodies? This is going to be especially important. I see a lot of people talking about the quarantine weight and even before quarantine. I just think that women can be so unkind to themselves. And so like in these stories and in your research, what I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. You're saying so many things to say. One of the things I would do with women, and I suggest doing this actually, is if a woman came to me and she talked about herself in incredibly negative ways, but as if it wasn't negative. Well, I'm this way and I shouldn't be this way, and I'm looking here and look at my arms and look at my cheeks and I'm getting older. Can you see and they're just they're walking down their body with critique after critique after critique. Now I know that hurts, because if someone from the outside, right, if I said to you, Celeste, I'm going to evaluate you from head to toe, I didn't even want to say that out loud, you'd be like, David, off the show, right? Or I'm going to use this as a great example of what a jerk is, or you're going to say something.
And what David's saying, listening to the person critique themselves is interesting. As therapists, and we're listening to people talk. She's talking about it so matter-of-factly, and I'm cringing, thinking like she doesn't even know that how hard she's being on herself. I'm sure that was going on in your head. It's like she has no idea, because it's just normal for her, because she's walking around with that shame and that bully in her head, and we're hearing it and having to bear witness and help her advocate. But continue.
Yeah, that's the point. The bully is, let me critique, let this inner voice that's come from a family, culture, etc., critique you. And then the shame is, and I don't even know what's happening. I don't know if it hurts. I don't know. I don't even know. I'm not even upset about it. I'm not even angry that I'm being treated that way. The shame dismantles the reaction. So I say, I don't like this about you, Celeste. And you're like, yeah, whatever. That's fine to have people talk to me like that. That's the shame bit inside of the person. Where does it come from? I mean, women know this better than me.
Where do we start?
That patriarchal gaze that is in the culture. Here, let me show you what beauty is. Let me show you what grace looks like. Let me show you what dignity looks like, or whatever that thing is, or what value or what worth looks like. And then that's shown in the media and magazines, channeled through people, channeled through relationships, channeled through family. So it comes from there. But where does the lack of reaction come from? The lack of like, hey, this magazine is showing only one kind of person. I find this hurtful. How come where does the dismantling of the reaction? This doesn't show it. This doesn't have pictures of anybody who looks like me. That's hurtful, right? We're starting to get more aware of that. We're starting to get more diversity, even in media, even modeling companies are saying, let's put women who don't only look like this particular image, thin and white, as that woman would say, would be one of the things. We need more of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's really good. That's good, and that's exactly where my mind went when I think about the shame. When you're working with people and they're coming to you with this body shame, what is your go-to mindset or thing to do to help them kind of work on kind of seeing themselves?
Yeah, there's two things that I'm thinking of in the moment. One goes back to that criticism. If a person has a lot of criticism, I often say to them, imagine I'm you and you are the person criticizing me. You know that voice in your head? Talk to me like that. And talk to me with the tone of it. Don't just say, David, that's not a nice shirt. Say to me, that shirt looks ugly on you. Don't you dare walk out of the house. Say it to me as ugly as it is. Because you're not ugly, but that voice is ugly. And I say, go ahead and say that to me. And if a person is able to do that, they can then start to hear.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll say something to me and I'll be like, oh my gosh. Like I'm not even talking to me literally. You think anybody's going to love you looking like that? I'm like, oh my gosh, how painful is that? So hearing those voices out loud wakes a person up. So that's one thing. But the second thing, and I think the most important over time, is to say to the person, let's not critique your body, but let's ask your body what it's like inside. So if I said to you, I don't like your belly, it's too big, and that's gentle. People are much rougher. Let me begin to say something like that to you. Okay, I'm going to tell you a criticism. And before I even need to say it, I say, what's happening to you so far? I haven't made the criticism yet. I say, feel your body, be in touch with your body as an intelligent system. Well, nothing much. Let me say it again. I'm about to criticize your body. I'm not going to do it yet. I don't do it selfless because they don't need one more time to hear it. Well, I'm getting a little tense in my stomach. Great. Can you show me the tension? Well, it's more like this. And they'll show me a fist or a hand that says stop, that pushes against. I say, yeah, you have something in you that resists. That's a smart body. It knows that that's not okay. So helping people make contact with their body intelligence, not treat it as something to fix, alter, shift, critique, but something that says, I have a message. I can teach you something. Love me, and I might tell you things. What are you thinking?
I'm
seeing your reaction. That's why I was asking you.
Wow, because it's so healthy. And one of the things I'll say to people, I say, would you say that I'll name somebody in their life. Is that how you would speak to that person? Or would you say that to that person? If this person is struggling, would you say, yeah, you are bad, or you are this? Mm-hmm. And then it's like that mindful moment forces people to pause and really think. Because what happens with the thoughts and the shame that bully in your head, because it has free reign in your life, it goes unchecked. Yeah. And so when it goes unchecked, it becomes real and it becomes your reality. And so what you're doing is forcing people to pause and forcing people to listen to what they're saying. And that's a mindful thing to do in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then guess what's happening? You can work on debunking that voice in that manner, whether you're saying it out loud, whether you're writing it. You can't let it stay up here, because it ends up becoming and controlling your everyday life. I really love that a lot. I think that's really powerful.
Can you imagine if there were a group of women, let's say 6, for I don't know, making up a number, and I came in as a man, right, more or less white, straight man, walk into the group and say, okay, I'm here to critique all your bodies. Well, you look better than you. I would never go out with you. You're not that attractive. You're a little bit interesting, but not as pretty as her. I wish you had that person's hips and that person's breasts, but your shoulders should be more. I would get killed, and ought to. Not literally, maybe literally, you know what I'm saying? But that goes on internally all the time.
Yeah.
There's a culture, a patriarchal culture internalized that's doing that all the time. And then so many people, like you're saying, because we're inured to it, we're so used to it, that they don't notice that there's a person like me, only it's many people like me, enough so that it's a massive force doing that all day long, and nobody's saying, let's kill that voice, not the person, let's not kill your individual, but let's kill that way of thinking, that attitude, that blindness. That idea should be killed. Those value systems. I mean, you've seen this. Yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, I was gonna say self-awareness is the first step to being able to do that.
Yeah. And then the body intelligence. Whew. I mean, there's not a single, in the 17 stories I told, but I've worked with so many more people, but in 17 stories, there's not a single woman in those stories where I didn't learn that they had a deep intelligence in what they were doing, in their bodies being bigger. I'm not saying you should stay that way or not. That's a choice that person makes. But there was a deep intelligence. Some women were traumatized early on, and their bodies became bigger. And when I asked them what it was like to be in a bigger body, not the criticism of their bigger body, but what it was like to be in their bigger body, they'd say, "Ooh, it feels bigger. I take up more safe. I feel safer in this particular body. Men don't look at me in the same way." That's a body that says, "I need safety."
Yeah.
That's an important thing. Well, some people were saying, "I'm eating certain foods. What do you get?" There was one woman who was living in a relationship with a partner who was an addict. He didn't physically violate her, but he did all kinds of crazy things that made her feel less well in the home, and made her feel less well as a mom for her child, because the partner wasn't always there and couldn't meet his commitments when he said he would be there. And she ate lots of pizzas. "Can you help me, David, stop eating pizza?" I said, "Tell me what it's like about eating pizza." Now shame's voice. "It's no good. It's stupid. It's making you fat." Okay, I understand. But when you put that pizza in your mouth, what happens? I want to know. I'm not thinking you should eat pizza. I just believe that you're not a dumb person, that there's intelligence. I said, "Make a sound." She goes, "Oh." Now, some people would go, some people go, "Yummy." She goes, "Oh." I say, "What's like?" She said, "It's like peace. It's like ease." I said, "Oh, do you have peace and ease in your life?" "No, my husband is crazy and he's always toppling things over and there's never a relaxing moment." So she's saying to me, "I have a relationship problem. My body and my hunger are saying, I'm too thrown around, too disorganized, too disorganized, too dismantled by this person's energy to feel well in myself. I need some peace." So, and every single person, if you inquire with curiosity, a witness that says, "I believe you, I believe in you, you must be doing something. I want to know what it is. I don't understand it, but maybe you can understand it and we can understand it together." And people start telling me these incredible things, and they usually don't have to do with, I should count my calories, right?
Right.
But it's a deeper psychological understanding. It's a self-love problem.
Right. And because the body keeps the score. And so when you guys, you hear David talk about just kind of listening and not saying what you should or should not do, but what do you feel? A lot of the coping mechanisms that we utilize to survive some of our traumas and emotional pain or emotional neglect are the reasons why we do that. And then we shame ourselves for just, surviving or, because we didn't know any other way. And so a lot of the times we hold pain in different parts of our body. And because, America, we're not a mindful nation, we don't care about wellness. We don't understand how to practice stillness and actually feel what's happening, because our body will your body's going to give you signs. That panic attack that you're having, there was things that were happening before that panic attack came full circle in that way. But, you know, we're not paying attention to it. So, you know, really, you know, I share this a lot. I always used to have back pain growing up, and undiagnosed. And then as an adult, more mindful me, noticed when I got overwhelmed, I felt like something heavy came on my back.
Wow.
And so people are always amazed when I share that. And how is it that your body keeps the score? We're powerful creatures. I don't understand how we stigmatize mental health, because everything is connected. And the more you start to understand the connection, and everybody's like situation looks different. So when you understand yourself and how you show up and how pain sits in your system, you'll be able to become more in tune and the author of your story and the way that you are living life, not surviving life. It's a huge difference.
That's gorgeous what you're saying. Yeah. I'm appreciating so much listening to the things you have to say and the way you frame them and the way you use words like authority and how you frame that self-awareness and the mindfulness that you focus on, your understanding. Anyway, sorry, I'm not just trying to be nice to you. I'm just
No, I'm like, thank you, David. Yeah. I appreciate you coming from you.
No, it means a lot. And I'm proud, honored to stand beside you, sit beside you, and trying to educate ourselves and using our own stories and thinking and study to open people's eyes, especially to the kind of violence. Sometimes I ask that it lives in the world. Sometimes I ask myself when I'm talking, David, how come you speak with such a and this and that? You know, because I don't always talk like that. And when I ask myself that right now, I think, because it's almost like I want to fight against forces that are hurting people. It's not a message of, oh yeah, don't worry about it. I love being tender to people.
Yeah.
But there's an assault happening. Yeah. And the assault is vicious and unseen. So in that case, a part of me wants to scream. Like it'd be like somebody getting beaten up and people walking by kind of going, yeah, don't worry about it. And a part of me wants to scream, no, it's really bad.
I know.
It's really bad.
We're a lot alike. I tell people if thoughts were real, I would have a hit on me, because I do a good job at breaking them up. Those negative thoughts that people have about the faulty thinking, I tell people would be out to get me. Because once we come in contact, people are forced to see the truth, me and those negative thoughts, because I'm challenging them. I'm helping people see how they can challenge them in their everyday life. It's so important.
That's great, because part of the therapeutic paradigm in general, and some people get caught in it, is I'm going to be a good listener. I'm going to be a good listener, which is great and absolutely necessary. But then many people need to not only listen as therapists. Everybody has their own style and should love that, and people will get use out of that. But ought to also challenge people's self-perception, understanding, not in a critical way or an assaultive way, but let me open your eyes about what's happening for you. If you're being hurt inside and outside and you don't know it, I would like you to know it, because you may be able to stop being hurt, and you may have a life that has, like that woman who has love to give. And then the crime of her being assaulted is bad enough, but the crime of the love that she has in her not expressing itself, that's too much. We can't let that go on. We can't let that happen.
No, you're right. And I tell people, before they start working with me, I'm going to challenge you and help you hold yourself accountable. And, some people just aren't ready for that, and they don't keep coming, which is fine. Right. Yeah. Some people just getting it out helps. But for me, I don't know how to not challenge you, because I want to see you live out your potential. That's just how I'm built.
Yeah.
For people that are interested in the book, it is currently on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. It says Bedrick celebrates the deep wisdom held in hearts, minds, and bodies of women in the powerful collection of profiles So it's funny because before the show I said you can't judge a book by its cover, and I kept saying it, but I'm looking at book. I'm looking at body, but I'm saying book.
Right.
But I know that was the psychology behind that. But you can't judge a body by its cover. This is the book that we've just been talking about just now.
Mm. Mm.
So
Thanks for showing that. Thanks for showing that. Yeah. My partner, Lisa, one of the ways that book came to being from just sitting in transcripts is one day she took all the transcripts and all this research that I had. It was like 500-600 pages of notes. She printed it all out of my computer. She put it in a binder and put it on my desk, and it said, "Your book." Now, it took 2 years to edit it
wow.
and make it into a book. But she said, "You can't let that sit there anymore. You have to make those stories public." Isn't that incredible?
Wow, that's so
Yeah,
many more moments today.
yeah. That was a guy. So you put your hand on your heart. That touched you.
I know, yeah, I can feel it. I'm really big on my body and feeling where I feel things.
What touched you about that detail? If I could ask.
Um, the way she loves you,
Yeah. Thank you.
the way she sees you,
Thank
even when
you.
you don't see yourself.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
No one's ever. I'm so glad I asked. No one's ever framed it that way. That is a way. She
yeah,
believes in me
she
in
believes.
ways,
Yeah,
yeah, and vice versa. But
you're gonna make me do it again. Yeah,
but it's a special thing to have someone uh, believe, yeah, because I didn't always have that.
right.
So I had manuscripts sitting in shelves and in computers and thrown in the wastebasket because
Yeah,
I had the material, but I didn't have enough inner support. And the way I get inner support, I think some people say you have to love yourself first. I think I love myself in part because somebody else loved me enough
yeah.
to show me.
Sometimes you have to believe in somebody else's, belief in you before yours kick in.
Yeah, I didn't have enough of that. I still need other people to believe in me in places that I can't quite
Right,
do it, to be honest. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Um,
That's touching, Celeste.
yeah, thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying yourself, David. Um, Before you go, tell people about your course. So you do have the book. You have 2 books. I think I'm going to break this podcast up into 2 episodes because I felt like we spent a good chunk on the book and just name it that, and then the first half about your story.
Perfect.
But if you can tell people about your course
Mhm.
that you have, in case people are looking to delve a little bit more deeper into some
Yeah.
things.
I teach a number of courses. One is for really meant for therapists and coaches. It's a year training, but um, there's 3 programs that are become available regularly. One is like a 4-week course on. It's called Breaking Shame's Grip. It's just about shame in general, how to work with it, identify it. And I have another course that I teach regularly called Anger Alchemy, and it's all about the learning to alchemize, use and access the power in anger, not so that you can hurt and injure and all that stuff, but not so that people don't disown that capacity, throw it away, and not make something out of it that they may need for their life. But then I have a course which is called a master course. You can't judge a body by a cover, and that's like a 6-month course. It's highly affordable. I also give partial scholarships to almost anybody who asks to make it accessible, and that goes through the book and then goes through exercises and journal entries and how to walk through exercises where you learn about what your body has to say about your relationships, what your body has to say about your deep hungers, not just the food, although using food as an intelligence, what your body has to say about your erotic self and living that, what your body has to say about trauma that you may have lived, what your body has to say about powers that live inside of you and things like that. So it's really meant to be the opposite of shame. Shame says, I'm not interested in what your deep intelligences and your own authority. Here's my opinion about you. Trust me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though it hurts. But a loving witness says, let's ask your body what the truth is, what you're hungry for, what your bigness is representing, not as something wrong with you. So that course is meant to do as much as I can to offer people that access. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's very powerful to really learn the body. A lot of people who may struggle with weight loss and working on it due to like medical issues, um, will do some action piece and find themselves like struggling. But a lot of it has to do with that psychological thing that's happening.
Yes, and how you frame it, because somebody could have a medical issue that leads them to be larger in body, but then how that person's going to look at their body is going to affect their voice, how they come out, how they're comfortable with other people, whether their gifts, if they want to play music. I'm thinking of a particular person from the study that if she looks at herself in a certain way, then she's not going to play her guitar in front of people. So it affects many other things, as you all know. So freeing that self up, wrapping that body in a set of eyes and a look that says, you're powerful, beautiful, intelligent. And then the word that I get shy to say is, and there's something divine, meaning you're a piece of God stuff, I want to call it. There's also something precious about your being that all exists in your way of being, in your soul, and your body expresses some of that also.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
This was good. I hope I was easy.
Yes, I want to be your best friend.
Yes, I want to be your best friend.
I feel like a 6-year-old. Want to be my best friend.
Well, I hope you stay in touch with me. Now that you've made it on the podcast, we can never not be in touch. Yeah. But no, I really hope this was okay. And I really, I'm grateful for your expertise and your willingness to share your story. You're interested in sharing stories. I'm I'm on episode 300 and something, right? I'm clearly interested in sharing stories and understand the power and storytelling and what it does with community for you. When people are struggling, when you're isolated, you feel alone. But then, I always give this example. AA works really well because you go in on day 1 and somebody's on day 20 years of being sober, and you start to realize like, oh my gosh, it is possible. So I'm grateful for people that are willing to come on and share their story and their expertise because I know it's going to help a lot of people.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any last words? Where can people find you?
You can find me on my website, which is David Bedrick. My last name is Bedrick, David Bedrick, like bedrock, with an I.com, so people can find me there. And if they snoop on Facebook, they'll find me there. I'm often putting up posts and thoughts and little videos, and those are just available without cost if people have financial struggles. You can Google my name in Psych Today. You'll find tons of articles there and other places, or YouTube, and you'll find stuff. Or if people want a book, and they feel like, ooh, I can't remember what it's on Amazon. Maybe it's like $12 or $13 or something. I can't remember. But if people say I just don't have the money, write to me. I'll give you the digital copy. I really want to get the information out. So if I'm not, you won't have to show me a balance sheet to do that. You can just say, you don't have to say I can't afford it. You can just say, I would love a digital copy, and I'll get you a digital copy. Yeah.
Thank you. You're so kind. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Celeste. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for your time. Okay, so that's a wrap. Thank you all so much for listening. This episode is going to be on Wednesday. So I am going to, because usually I do like 45 minutes, but it was just so good. I didn't know how to stop. And I wanted people to get the information. So it was so valuable, being in this field for, over almost 20 years and working with so many different people. A lot of the things that he touched on are the areas that people struggle. And to hear like the way he's working with people and to hear that he struggled, right? I think that's going to help people understand that that's available to me too. I think there's a really false misconception that people tend to just kind of wake up and they have their life together. But no, so I just want people to heal and one podcast at a time. So thank you all so much for listening to me. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to celestetherapist.com. And until next time, I'll talk to you all later.
It is 65 days, but I treat every day like it's my last. I'm only concerned with building on the future, because I can't change my past. Positive vibes for positive lives. She just giving you that truth and shifting your mind. It's more mental than you realize. It's up to you to take control, cause this world is cold and negativity gon' take its toll. Now we've been told any day could be your last. I'm embracing every moment and I cherish every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste.